Hey everybody, Gary Smith is out sick this week. That is Kaz Kenny.
Kapow!
And I am Eddie Bramwell, and this is episode 18
Wow.
of the Blackwaters Edge podcast. Kaz, start us off with this week's fishing report.
All right, folks. Well, we know the weather's getting warm, and the eastern shore perch halts are starting to unfold, and the fish are showing up. So every place that you like to catch your yellow perch and white perch, you definitely want to make some adventures there in the next week and get on some fish and fill your freezer up. Meanwhile, here in the refuge, fishing's been like the stock market, up and down. One day we're really good, the next day we're crashing in the mud. So over 335, we're seeing some white perch, we're seeing some catfish, we're seeing a lot of carp, a few snakeheads are showing up. I've talked to some of the netters, they're getting a lot of snakeheads in the nets. I mean, a lot. So y'all just sit tight. It's getting ready to happen.
It's coming.
It's coming. Even the other day, I was at a spot and I was walking the dog, and the frogs jumped in the pond. And as soon as the frogs jumped in the pond, they were gone. So we even had a day in the last week where I got a couple snakeheads on topwater pocket frogs in a nice warm ditch. So you can look forward to some topwater action coming your way here really soon. Let's think. Over at the Transquakin, I'm talking to Cornflower today, and he's on some giant snakeheads today over there. Drawbridge area, the Chickamauga, New Bridge, crappie. We've seen some big crappie come this week, a handful, a couple bass, quite a few snakeheads over there. Drawbridge, same thing. If you're there at the right time, right place, you'll fill your bucket, fill your cooler. Same with Griffith's Neck. So everybody just sit tight up the bay. I'm hearing great things from Roy up there in the Susquehanna and from West Side Snacks. You know, they're catching a lot of yellow perch, some big catfish, some walleye, a little bit of everything, smallmouth. So reach out to them boys over there if you're looking for a report on the Upper Bay. And I think that's about what I got. I mean, it's common. We're all itching. We've been itching for weeks, man. Every time we see a warm day, I'm out the door and I'm like, damn. You know, so just sit tight, folks. It's gonna really tune in here real soon.
All right, so this week on the show, we've got Marsha from Blackwater Refuge. Marsha, how you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Good. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself real quick?
Sure. Well, I am originally from Western Pennsylvania. That's where I grew up, and my very first memories outdoors were going fishing with my dad and my family, going camping. He was a middle school science teacher, so during the summer, he would just take us out camping and fishing and all of that fun memories.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, he died when I was only 5.
Oh, wow.
So those
Sorry
were pretty early memories, but my mom, in trying to keep his spirit alive and make sure me and my little sister didn't miss out on anything, continued to take us fishing. And to her credit,
That's fantastic.
she did not like to touch worms. And I still remember to this day her getting leaves and trying to touch the worms. And me being the little tomboy that I've always been, I was like, here, I'll do that for you, Mom. And I would bait the hooks and get out there. So I didn't really have much instruction, but I know I love to do it. And that's one of the things I love about fishing is it's so accessible to everybody. So even though I didn't really know too much, and I was a little 6-year-old girl out there doing it, I would tumble down the cliff in the backyard and fish Chartiers Creek, which is only those in Western Pennsylvania would know where that is, and continued on. And then I learned how to fly fish when I was closer into college and just loved fishing. That's when I started shooting as well, but I actually didn't start hunting until I was in my mid-20s.
Oh, wow.
So fishing, angling has always been one of my ways to get outside and enjoy the great outdoors. And that's how I really knew from a very young age that I wanted to work with wildlife in some fashion. So I went on to school and became a wildlife biologist, went to University of Pittsburgh, and then got my master's from West Virginia University. Go Mountaineers.
Very good.
And joined a nonprofit conservation group where I worked as a biologist for about 10 years, and then joined the Fish and Wildlife Service, who I've been with for, I guess it's been about 12 years now, as a biologist. Yeah.
And so when did you start working down in the Blackwater system?
It will be, amazingly, 4 years this July.
Oh, wow.
It seems like just yesterday that I came here. So I was fortunate enough to get my dream job as a refuge manager. And I moved from the D.C. area where I oversaw for the National Wildlife Refuge System communications and visitor services. So basically all the human side, people side of things, from hunting and fishing and getting people outdoors and communicating and sharing, basically sharing our love for refuges and wildlife in general. So it was July 4 years ago, and I'm not leaving. I love it here. I love it.
That was going to be my next question. So Marsha, what do you love about working at Blackwater National Wildlife Refuge?
Well, a number of things. For one thing, of course, the obvious. If you come out to Blackwater You've got to love the landscape, the scenery. Right now, we've got about 10,000 Canada geese that are getting ready to migrate. We've also got about 9,000 snow geese. They're out there right now eating all the corn that we knocked down for them, and they're in the impoundments, and they're getting up, and they're getting ready to migrate. So our wildlife is amazing. And at the same time, you hear all the chorus frogs starting to come on board and say spring is around the bend, turkey season's almost here. So the wildlife for sure. So being able to do something where you are you can see the fruits of your labor. You can see every day what you're working for. It helps you get over the bureaucracy and the other crap.
It's a lot.
Everybody is crap.
I think a lot of people don't realize how much of an impact the refuge has here in Dorchester County.
Oh yeah.
And I think that for the most part, I think everybody's very satisfied and very happy with the job that you guys do, especially myself. You know what I mean? I think they do a great job.
100%.
I know that you like hunting. I know a lot of our listeners like hunting, you know. So we've had a lot of people that have been asking us recently about how do I get involved with hunting or harvesting, you know, game in the Blackwater National Wildlife Refuge. And, you know, we've always tried to answer them the best that we can. But I think the greatest thing about you being on the show today is that we have an opportunity to represent some questions that we've been asked from the public in hopes of getting some answers so that we don't have any more problems or issues, especially with the oncoming season of the snakeheads that are coming. We know we're going to have the crowds. So not to get into that, but let's stay with the hunting.
Right.
I'm new to the area. I hear you guys have these things called Sika deer, and I hear you guys have a nice turkey population and whitetails and, you know, all kinds of stuff that I can get into here just from looking at, you know, the website.
Sure.
So as a person from the public, how do I reach out to the refuge and how do I get my foot in the door to come and harvest some of these wonderful creatures?
Sure. Well, everything is online. So if you go to our webpage, the Blackwater National Wildlife Refuge webpage, or go to our Facebook page and then click onto our webpage, you'll find all the information you need for hunting and fishing and access and kayak trails and everything else as well. So for hunting in particular, you can go there and it'll outline whichever species you're looking for. We do have hunting for deer, waterfowl, and turkey on the refuge. So go to that page. Then you actually go online to recreation.gov. We went online last year for the first time. And you excuse me, I'm getting over
I
a
know,
cold.
you're getting over a cold.
And you can go online and buy your permit that way. So all of our regulations are online there. So for deer, it's very simple. We follow the state season. So we open in September for archery. Don't close again till the end of January. You can also buy permits for days for early muzzleloader, late muzzleloader, shotgun as well. And so all that is listed on the website and recreation.gov.
And this year, I understand that we're going to be able to harvest a turkey, maybe, possibly. Is that what I'm understanding on the refuge?
Yes. Our turkey hunts have been very popular. In fact, they are a true lottery hunt. This year, it is online, so you'll go to recreation.gov. You select which dates. You can pick up to 3 dates, and then you will be entered into that lottery. After March, it closes on March 10th, so make sure you go in by March 10th to do that. Then you'll be notified if you got your selections and you can accept it or not. If you accept it, boom, you pay your $10 fee to hunt the refuge, and you've got
That's pretty
your
reasonable,
unit.
$10.
Yeah,
You know? That's good.
yeah, you've got that unit to hunt. And if you don't want to accept it, you can deny it, and then that'll go back into the pot, and it will be open for everybody, first come, first serve on March 26th.
So when that happens, somebody just shows up on the 26th, is that what you said? And then
They go online on March 26th.
So it'll be online. You're not going to come to Blackwater and bid on what's
That's
left.
correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Don't want a bunch of people showing up at the visitor center for a lottery. That's
No,
not going to happen.
Thank you. And so this is good because in the past you would get your unit, you would get your day and your unit, and that's it. We don't know if you showed up or not. You paid for it, so you got
Right.
that. But now, if you missed that or you didn't get the date or unit that you want, you have a second chance to
Now-
get that. So it's nice that way. So online has its pros and cons, but that's one of the pros.
Much easier to keep track of, though.
Yes.
I think
exactly.
one of the neatest things, and let's help the public to understand this. If I come into Blackwater and I'm hunting Sika deer and my bag limit's 3, right, and I get my 3,
Yes.
and I decide I want to go out here to Taylor's Island public hunting area and get me 3 more during that season, do those deer that I killed in Blackwater count against my Maryland bag, or is that basically like a bonus deer?
It's a bonus deer. We
Right.
do have an exemption from the state as a managed hunt for
So,
that.
so to bring more people and to get more people to apply, we want the public to know that when you hunt Blackwater National Wildlife Refuge, one of the greatest things about it is all those deer that you harvest don't count against the Maryland bag. So if you get your limit of Sika in Blackwater and get your limit of Sika over in the public land, boy, you got a nice freezer going
You got a
on.
full
You know
freezer.
what I'm saying?
And you are a darn good hunter.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that
That's
too,
exactly
that too.
You may not have hunted much Sika to know how difficult they are.
Let's talk about your first deer hunt you went on.
My first Sika deer hunt or my first deer hunt?
Let's
deer
talk
hunt?
about your first deer hunt. You
Okay,
know, and
okay,
and
sure.
and how that maybe built some excitement to go after the Sika deer.
Oh yeah, yep. So
I'll never forget my first hunt. You know,
yeah,
so.
no, I don't either. In fact, my very first hunt where I actually brought my gun out and was going to, okay, I could shoot a deer. I was married at the time, so it was my ex-husband, and I told him I had been shooting a skeet and sporting clays for quite a while. Then I moved and got more comfortable with firearms, and I'm like, all right, I'm not sure if I'm going to hunt deer or not, but I'd already started hunting birds because I had springers and I loved bird hunting, loved it.
That's
So I
awesome.
said, all right, I'll try deer hunting. And I told him, I'll make the decision when I have that deer in my scope if I'm going to pull the trigger or not. And I want you to not say a word. You better be all right with that. It's my call.
I was the same way as you
My call.
when I went hunting my first time. I wasn't sure if this was for me because I'm like you. I see something on the side of the road. I want to pick it up, love it, hug it, and nurse it and let
Yes.
it go. You know,
Yeah.
so I can understand
I
that.
was about 25, I believe, at that time. And I still remember a buck came by, and I was so excited. I was shaking so hard, and I didn't have a shot. You know, it was
Right.
one of those chance things. But I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure I would have pulled that trigger. So it was a done deal.
So you were ready.
It was a done deal.
That's fantastic.
And then when I finally did get my first buck, I was living in Ohio at the time. I still remember that deer. He's on my wall right now, along with my biggest buck that I got as well, whitetail. And yeah, there was no doubt. So, but having your first experience and having it go well is extremely important.
It really
It's
is. Yep.
extremely. If you put pressure on somebody, or if they cry and you make you make that a big deal, that could ruin it for them. So
That's exactly right.
that's one of the reasons why I started working with some of our partners, National Wild Turkey Federation and DNR, to help start our first shot mentored hunts, to give adults in particular
That's a great.
the opportunity to learn how to hunt with a mentor on the refuge or on private land nearby, and have a good experience and help them along, because it's a process. So I still remember that as if it were yesterday. So
I agree. I mean,
I'm
I
happy
think
with
I
that.
think like a lot of times you talk to little kids about hunting, and you know they're either I want to do it, or no, I want to hug it. You know, so
yeah.
so I think it's real important what you're saying right there is not to push somebody into what they don't want to do. You know, like you're saying it. When my cousin took me, it was the same thing. My cousin Ricky took me, and we sat in this wagon. We were on a crop damage permit, and I really wasn't sure whether or not I wanted to shoot a deer. You know, and like you. We sat there and, we were kind of just the bond that we were creating in that wagon. And my first deer isn't really like a great success story, but we were hunting a crop damage permit in Abingdon, and this little deer, which I didn't know was a little deer, I just saw a deer through the scope. So, I pulled the trigger, and it actually was like a yearling that had been born the year before. And I like I said, I'm new to the sport, and I hear the thing making some noises I'm not real sure about, and we're running up to it, and then the mother's standing there with it, and
Oh yeah.
and he's like, shoot the mom. I'm like, no, I'm not shooting, it's mom. And he's like, give me the gun. And he grabs the gun, and by that time the mom was gone. So I was really actually kind of confused on my first deer hunt after it went down, because I wasn't sure where I was. I'll tell you what changed it for me. When Ricky ground that deer up, added bacon to it, sent it back to me, and
I
I
was
made
gonna
myself a cheeseburger. I was like, yeah, buddy, I like deer hunting now. Little, big, I don't care. If it's browns down, now I don't hunt like that. But, that's how you are when you
Well, yeah.
get fired up, you get
Right.
into it. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and all these new hunters that we've been helping on the refuge, we've brought about 80 new hunters through in the past 2 years with
That's
the help of our
fantastic.
partners. And a lot of people that live around here and hunt the refuge are mentors, as well as NWTF members. So without them, we couldn't do it. But a lot of them are doing it because they want sustainable food. They
Yes.
want the meat.
Yes.
They want the adventure. They want to share something with their family. All the same things that we did for different reasons
Absolutely,
back
yeah.
then. But it's really bringing a lot of people on. And so shooting that younger deer, some of us might be like, oh, you should shoot a mature buck. No, to that person, what matters is meat in the food. And that young deer,
So happy to
honestly,
hear you say that.
is the right choice.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
So
Tender.
delicious. Yes.
So I'm not sure that the public, because we're getting a lot of new viewers, a lot of new people down here in
Yes.
Dorchester County. Sika deer are a big attraction.
They are.
How did we get these Sika deer here? And this is another question. Do we only have one, what's the word I want to use, like species of
Subspecies?
Sika deer, or do we have 3 subspecies of Sika deer? Because I've heard that. I've heard some have the mane, some don't have the mane, some are black, some are brown. So maybe you can help the public understand a little bit how the Sika deer got here, how it unfolded, and do we have 3 different kinds, or do we just have one?
Okay. Well, I always rely on our deer biologists, our experts from the state, Brian Eilers, who we work with. He works for DNR for Maryland. And we also work with University of Delaware, Dr. Jake Bowman, and we conduct studies with them. And they're the ones who've done a lot of research on Sika here. They were introduced from Japan actually from Europe, but they're actually a Japanese deer in the early 1900s and then the 1930s onto James Island, which is now a very deteriorating little island.
They're actually about to rebuild it.
Yes, and we're part of that.
Oh,
That's
I
good.
Which
didn't
we're
realize
really
that. That's
excited about.
fantastic.
Yes, through Barren Island.
Right.
next
I
door.
didn't realize you guys were part of that too.
Yes, we've been waiting for that, so we're really excited. But I've been fishing off of James Island the past couple years, now that I live out here and enjoy rockfish. And just watching how small that is and just imagining that those introduced Sika were once on this large forested island and escaped from there is just amazing. So that's where they came from in the early 1900s, in the 1930s in particular. And they have expanded because, well, for some strange reason, they do really well in Dorchester County. But they're in their native
Everything seems to.
their native habitat in Japan are mountains, so it doesn't
Right.
make sense. The snakehead thing, you can see, okay, that makes sense, right? But not Sika.
It-
But they do. They thrive here, and our whitetail numbers, when it comes to actual the surveys we do, our FLIR surveys, as well as our harvest numbers, have gone down, and Sika numbers have just jumped tremendously up.
So are Sika? I don't want to ask this question right.
Sure.
So is Sika pushing the whitetail out of their area, or are the numbers of whitetails diminishing as the numbers of Sika are increasing?
Hard to say.
Okay.
I'm going to say we don't know because
Okay.
that would be a totally different. That would require
And I
Careful
may
study,
and
and
I may ask some really stupid questions sometimes because I don't really know a lot
That's
about
a
them
great-
anyway, So
That's a great question. It's a hard question. That's why I'm not going to pretend to know the answer to that without actually studying. We don't know.
So
we
we-
don't know. Is
we-
it the habitat
Right.
changes? I mean, you go down south and there's some really big bucks in the swamps and marshes. So I don't know. Are they out competing or not? They are very, they're very adaptable. They are doing very well, as you all know, in our marshes. They eat Phragmites. What else
I know,
eats Phragmites?
I know.
Nothing.
I know.
You see them, stripping it off like corn on the cob when they're in there. And
That's a good,
that's
good
what they do.
description.
I love her.
and whitetails won't do that, So I think Sika are very adaptable, and they've been able to take advantage of the changing conditions on right here in
Right.
southern Dorchester in particular. And they feed heavily on ag lands. They're in the marsh. So
Well, I have this thought rolling in my mind because we're talking about the frag, and it just popped into my head the word Nutria.
yes.
So,
yes. There's a success story.
Maybe we'll have a good success story with snakeheads like that too. But either way, so the Nutria. Let's talk about the Nutria, the problem that we had a few years back, and the combat that we did here to
Yes.
to make a dent and eradicate them.
Sure. So yeah, Nutria were also introduced in the 1930s. Delmarva Fur Farm. That was what was Blackwater before Blackwater. And that fur farm was for muskrats, and they also introduced Nutria, thinking, oh, this will be great. We'll have another source of fur. Well, that didn't work out so well.
Right.
I guess that fur isn't as great as muskrats,
No.
but they are extremely adaptable as well. And Nutria expanded on the landscape all over the Delmarva, and to probably 50 to 70,000 some across the landscape.
Holy cow.
It was
So
a lot.
yeah, in the early 2000s, our partners, the Refuge, Maryland DNR, USDA Wildlife Services, got together and went to Congress for funding to help develop a program to eradicate Nutria. And now the problem with Nutria, because you have invasive species, you have exotic species, some are going to do a lot of damage, some aren't. Nutria are a worst case example of what can go wrong, because not only were they expanding on the landscape and outcompeting muskrats, but they were eating the marsh away. So anybody who lives around here knows that we've got a lot of different factors affecting sea level rise and affecting why we're getting more and more underwater, so to speak. Part of it's sea level rise. Part of it's the way that the continent, the plates, there's this, I forget what the technical term is, but there's this shifting, kind of like a seesaw. So the northern part of the continent goes up and the southern part goes down. And where we're at on the bay is the southern part. There's a big fancy name for it. Don't remember what it is. I call it the seesaw. That's what I remember. And then on top of both of those things, you had Nutria, and they would eat out the marsh. And we have photos of that. It was very, very visible, just like the sea level rise is visible here. So if we wanted to protect our marsh and all the wildlife that depends on that habitat, what do you do about the Nutria? And so we went at it with a heavy trapping program. And then once we trap them out, we have a dog detector program. I say we, that's the Wildlife Services from USDA working in conjunction with us in the state. And what they have been doing, and they're at the tail end of it now, is actually monitoring all 7 watersheds in this particular area, including the Blackwater and around, to make sure that there are no nutria left. And they're doing that because the dogs are trained to smell scat. So they're out there looking for poop, because it's a lot easier to find poop than it is to find a live nutria if they're there. They're giant rodents, they poop a lot.
Are they still seeing any at all today?
No, we have not caught one now since 2015.
That's amazing.
Very good.
Yes,
That
so
is
we're
amazing.
knocking on wood, but that yes, we will be done with all the land, with all the watersheds by the end of next year, 2021.
While we're talking about nutria, we talk to a lot of folks here, and I know a lot of folks. Some folks blame the nutria for the loss of the pads in Blackwater, especially above the 335 area. You've been here since, when did you say you came in?
July
4 years?
2016. Yeah,
So when you were here after the pads were already gone. So you
Correct.
couldn't answer that question. My question was going to be to the nutria, because the fact they were undercutting the marsh and releasing the levels of methane out of the mud, is that what possibly wiped out some of the lily pads? So
Yeah, possible. Nutria and actual sea level rise, the water rising, they all contributed. You cannot, if we still had nutria on the landscape, a lot of what we're trying to do with marsh restoration would not even be, don't even try it. You needed to get away with. You needed to get them off the landscape.
Well, you guys have done a phenomenal job with that.
Absolutely.
I will say that.
100%.
Well, thanks. We got a lot of really good staff, and we got great partners. Blackwater is one of the most studied refuges around the country. So thank goodness for all the researchers out there who like to come out and.
Harvest numbers this year. Can you give us any of them?
We just got them.
Okay.
We just got them, and from Brian Eiler, and looking at them, we have 409 Sika were harvested this year.
In the refuge, not statewide.
On the refuge.
Right.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have the state ones offhand.
That doesn't seem like a really big number to me.
Well, last year we had 445.
Is that right?
Yep, and in previous years it's been 300 some.
I mean, you drive around at night and you see hundreds of them in the field right
Yes.
in Blackwater, you know? And then
74 whitetail. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of that
Okay.
Sika whitetail balance. And when you look at where we're at, most of the areas got a lot of marsh. And that's where everybody's going, is the marsh more than anything. So that number is actually a little down from last year, but it's higher than it had been in previous years.
So as far as the hunters, hunting in the marsh and accessing the marsh, how's that relationship been with the hunters? Has it been pretty good so far? I mean, they seem to be following the rules and playing by the book?
Oh, yes. Okay. Yes. Yeah. I, as we've talked about before, I hunt the refuge as well. So I'm out there, and sometimes people know who I am. Sometimes they don't.
Better when they don't, in my opinion, for me. That's right.
But everybody's been more than that I've run into when I've been hunting. And I've been hunting a lot because they're hard. They're hard to get.
Very hard.
So you have to put your time in. And people have been more than generous and very friendly. And I think public lands are so important. Not everybody can afford a lease. Not everybody knows somebody, even if they do. It's important to have these places where anybody can come hunt.
And that's what we try to tell folks, to help you guys get more traffic. Look, you go over there, you don't have to deal with a club. You don't have to deal with whether or not your buddy hunted your stand the day before and cuts you off and stole your deer. You can just go in there and do what you want. And there's so much ground here and so much area available that, I don't see the issues here with the permit holders as far as There's nowhere to hunt. They're hunting on top of one another. You know, it seems like the area here is so vast and so expansive that there's room enough for everybody. And I think that's kind of one of the great things that we want to emphasize here, you know, to help raise some funds for Blackwater is, you know, get you a permit, take advantage of this opportunity. You know, there's not many people in the country that get this kind of opportunity. They can just go to a refuge, get a permit, and go hunting. Think about Wyoming. Think about places like that. You got to wait. You got on a list. You know, you got a lottery for that. You got to go through so much paperwork. It's not funny. This is really pretty cut and dry, and you're going to be able to have an opportunity at something just like Snakeheads that you never had an opportunity at before, especially for guys that aren't from the Eastern Shore and aren't familiar with the Sika deer. You know?
Absolutely. And they're working on getting another area open, right?
Yes, yes, we are really excited about an acquisition that we just had occur in the fall. The current owners were allowed to continue hunting that through the end of January, so we haven't done the final inspection and are on the site yet, but we're thinking ahead. There's 3 parcels, about 2,700 acres, in the Peters Neck area and Money Stump area.
Yep.
And we will be opening that up for hunting, as well as hopefully for some access for hiking trails and also for fishing.
That'd be awesome.
And such. So we're going to have a public meeting coming up on May 2nd, and we'll be announcing that. This is the first time I've actually put that out there.
May 2nd.
May
so
2nd.
Mark your calendar if you want to come here and you want your piece to be heard, you know.
10 to noon. And we'll be going over our any hunt changes, the hunt results, things that we just talked about,
Excellent.
such as our harvest results and our University of Delaware study that we do every year. We'll be sharing all of that and getting input on ideas and changes. But we're also going to have really focus on this new parcels that we're getting.
Right.
And what are your ideas, your input for opening that up for hunting, fishing, soft access as far as kayaking and paddling, because we'd like to really be able to find another area that people can access for those purposes.
And
we think
where is this? Where is this at again?
So Peters Neck area is probably not going to have the good water access. That's
Right.
off of 16. But the Money Stump area, when you're coming down Smithville, that was previously privately owned, we think does have potential. And that's
It's a
on the
beautiful
Blackwater.
area, and they're
Yes.
beautiful. The public would be so amazed to
if
see this.
people are willing to walk a little bit, we'll be able to open that up sooner rather than later, because roads and such take a lot of time and money. But what I've found and what I believe is that there are people who want to hunt and fish, just walk a little bit. Then there are people who are willing to walk a mile to get back away from people and to enjoy the scenery, the peace and quiet, not hearing cars and roads.
I'm not trying to be a little biased, but I see from talking to people here at the store, it seems to be that those type of people have a little bit more success in the refuge when they're willing to walk a little bit further.
Yes.
So,
Yes. If you don't want to walk, you don't have to. We've got plenty of places.
Oh, yeah.
But you were talking before about not running into other people or hunting on top of each other.
Right.
If you're willing to walk a little,
Right.
you can have the place to
That's
yourself.
right.
But you do have to walk a little.
I think one of the biggest concerns that Blackwater has, and I think it's something that we're going to address here in the future, I'm sure, especially with May 2nd when it happens, is the respect of the property that you're on in Blackwater. You know, I think one of the biggest reasons Blackwater doesn't want to open a lot of ground up is because they're concerned about sensitive areas. And I can understand that. You know, we need those sensitive areas. They're important to the ecosystem. So I agree 100%. When we open these other areas up, I think the biggest thing that we're going to have to educate the public about is, you know, if you didn't bring your mother or your maid, please take your trash with you.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
a lot of folks are talking about, you know, asking us about getting trash cans out on bridges and things like that. And we try to tell them, you know, we don't want to put a trash can out there because in the middle of the night when we've got a bunch of rowdy guys riding around at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. and they decide, hey, let's throw the trash can in the water tonight. You know what I
Yes.
mean? So we here at Blackwater's Edge, we've always taken a stance that, you know, we're going to do our part to help the community. So hopefully, you know, out of respect for Blackwater, as Blackwater opens up these properties, that these people are going to be respectful enough, you know, to utilize the property. And I can tell you right now, folks, these good folks get some land opened up for us and you start dumping your trash, it'll be done. And these are prime places that haven't been touched. These are places that haven't been fished. These are places where you might just find a world record. Anyway, so
Don't get their expectations up. Oh my goodness.
not all liars like not all fishermen are liars, but a lot of liars like to fish. No, I'm just kidding. So let's start getting into the snakehead stuff now.
Absolutely.
You want to start digging into that? All right, let's do
But
that.
I want to, before you go off that, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for encouraging people to clean up and take care of things, because it is the public's land. It's all of our land, and it only takes a few bad actors, as we all know, to make a bad impression. Whether you're a hunter leaving your stand up over when you're supposed to take it out, or leaving your trash or not. So it reflects badly on our community if we don't
all do our part.
Right.
Yeah,
and one of the
exactly.
first things that we did last year here, with us was, we went out to the community because we knew the crowds. We knew last year was going to be when it hit. I've been watching it for 5 years trying to get him. Dude, we got to get on this thing. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming.
Yep.
People sometimes get upset with us thinking we're bringing the crowd here, and that's not the case. They're coming whether we bring them or we don't bring them, because this is the biomass of snakeheads in the country. I mean, these people are coming from across the country now at this point to come here and fish for snakeheads. So, we're going to continue to do the same thing that we've done this year, which is stop bitching, pitch in, man. You know what I mean? We can all complain about trash. We can all complain about who did it, this guy and that. But really, man, the best thing we can do is just go pick it up. You know what I mean? Don't say a word. Just go pick it up,
Exactly right.
So we're going to have trash, we'll have trash bags again here and gloves available this year. Daryl Willie even said when anybody buys a product from him on his website, if they're fishing the refuge, that he will donate and send with them in their order.
He said when you make your purchase on addictionbaits.com, just make a note in the comment section that you want to help pick up some trash, and he'll provide some trash bags and gloves for you.
So we're already here, and we're going to stand behind you. We're going to be here to help you if you need some help too, and also the Friends of Blackwater is very involved too.
Yes.
So let's start talking a little bit about snakeheads. So I know my friend Fred DeWeese, he's got the fly fishing snakehead page, and I just want to touch on that. You said you like fly fishing. Have you done any fly fishing for snakeheads?
No,
you haven't.
I have not. I have not. Since I moved here, I haven't done any fly fishing.
Is that something that's on your bucket list, maybe?
Maybe. It's been hard enough.
Fred, get this lady one of them flies you gave me, all right?
It's been hard.
So you've caught some
I've
big
caught
snakeheads.
I've only caught a few. My very first one was the one that you put on Facebook last night, which was my big one.
What is Marsha's favorite way to fish for snakeheads?
Top water.
Well,
I love top water for everything, though. Whether it be rockfish or
badass
trout.
is that, man?
But who doesn't?
Right.
Yeah.
What else do you like to fish for here at Blackwater?
Well, rockfish, but not on Blackwater, of course. So.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So on Blackwater itself and in the particular area, I've only been fishing for snakeheads.
Okay.
But then we get out on the bay and fish for rockfish and perch, which the most delicious of all.
What are the fishing rules in Blackwater? And the reason I'm going to ask this question, me and Eddie were talking about this. Eddie even said this earlier. Why can we fish? What were you saying about Key Wallace? Why?
So, yeah, before the show started, we were talking about places you can and can't fish. And Key Wallace in particular, you're allowed to fish from the causeway. And that's really the only place you're allowed to fish from shore inside the refuge. And
Yes.
And so what's the distinction there for why people are able to fish there?
Yes.
Like here's the thing. Like I know if you go back 5 years ago, you really didn't get much said to you if you parked at 335 and walked out to the tree and fished on the point. Right. Now they don't want you to step off the parking lot in the grass. So we know a lot of things have changed here, at least for me personally. What I knew 5 years ago was okay, today is not okay. So I think the public really needs to be updated on where can I stand and fish at? Where can I legally stop my vehicle? Where that kind of thing. So so maybe we can help the public a little bit. Why can I fish on Key Wallace inside the refuge, but I can't fish on the side of the road on 335 if there's a ditch between the road and the refuge property?
Yeah. So so some things haven't changed at all. For instance, our regulations for fishing have not changed. What has changed are the number of people who actually want to fish the refuge. So
That's true.
When I came here, like I said, not even 4 years ago, I asked about fishing because I'm like, oh, look at all this water. Oh, this will be great. Can I bring my canoe out, my kayak out and fish? And they're like, oh, hardly anybody fishes here. It's not that big of a deal. You'll see a few people crabbing and catching some perch early. That's what they said. And then the next 2017, little snakehead stuff. And before you know it, it was a couple people in particular who said, this snakehead thing is getting big. It is going to get big. It's going to change everything. And I'm like, I think you're right. Because all you have to do is be on Facebook to see all the social media talking about it. And indeed, it has exploded. So that has changed a lot. So you've never been allowed to fish from the shoreline of the refuge, basically, from anywhere. That hasn't changed.
You hear that, Uncle Wayne? So the stuff we were doing 5 years ago, we weren't allowed to do.
Yeah, there is enforcement discretion. You know, some things, if one or two people do it and it's not causing a problem, yes, it's against the rule. Yes, you could get a ticket, but no one's going to bother you.
It's like speeding. So
yes.
if you go, what do they say? 9, you're fine. 10,
you're mine.
Yeah, 6 or 7, or if you're just driving by and you look ugly, he might get you. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's it. You just don't know. But now with all this demand, it's changed everything. So one of the things things that we have been looking at is how can we accommodate all the interests that there are in angling for fishing for snakeheads, because we want people to go out and catch them. We want them, one, to have a good time and enjoy the refuge. Refuges, we have what's called the Big Six. These 6 recreational opportunities that we want the public to have. It's actually in law as well. It's hunting and fishing, wildlife observation and photography, education and interpretation.
Wow.
So we want people to go out and fish as long as it's compatible with the purposes of the refuge, so that it's not basically messing up whatever it is you're established for, because we are first and foremost for wildlife conservation.
Yep.
So how can we allow people to fish without basically interfering with refuge purposes? So we looked at Key Wallace in particular, the bridge and that area, and say, you know what? If people can fish there and stay out of the road and not cause a safety hazard for themselves or everybody else who lives here, and for all the tour buses that are coming between Tubman and other areas, which is certainly another new factor, then we're going to let them. So we actually have our staff's been the one that's been mowing the causeway right there.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and we moved the signs because they were a little cockeyed. Like one side would be don't park here, the other side was don't park there. There was a reason for it from many, many years ago. This didn't make sense anymore.
Right.
So we moved all the parking, no parking on the little teeny narrow side of it.
On the one side, yep.
Because that makes sense. Everybody park on one side so that people don't have to snake in and out of vehicles, and everybody can fish from either side.
The farmers really enjoy that rule too, that they can stay on one side now.
Well, that was part of the impetus, because one thing as the refuge manager, you will get, if there's an issue, I usually hear about the bad stuff way before I ever hear about the good stuff. And I need to, and I want to, because we want to try and solve problems and make sure everybody can have, a safe, enjoyable time, including the people who need to go home and farm and such. So that was one of the things we did to move the traffic so that the combines and everybody else could get by safely. And then we also, because of the parking issue, we also opened up a little parking lot at the beginning of Wildlife Drive. There's a little building there that used to be our old headquarters many years ago. We took out the no parking signs, and now we have parking signs there. And we've been encouraging people. We need to do a better job of that. But that parking lot is open, so you can park there.
I think people look at it like, well, I parked there, I got to walk our way down the bridge, I'm going to park down the bridge.
They do that. They do that, yes. So, but there's another parking area that you can park and walk.
And they're doing this for you guys.
Right.
They're opening these areas for you guys that are asking for more access. So rather than complain that I got to walk an extra 100 yards to get to my fishing spot, maybe just be grateful that you got somewhere to park instead of driving 2 hours here and having to go back home. You know what I'm saying?
Like Marcia said, the number one goal is to maintain the conservation aspect of Blackwaters mission. But we're trying to also open up as much access as possible while still remaining in those rules. So
it's a balancing act.
That's
Yeah. And on 335, we have the soft launch down there as well. And so the parking lot before wasn't really striped or anything. It was like, oh, nobody fishes. It's never full. In fact, that's what somebody said to me. It's never full. I see 4 or 5 people. Now it's so full. When I drove by going to Sika on the Refuge, at 4 a.m., it's packed. It is packed. And I'm like, well, that changed. So one of the things we did was we worked with the state, and we actually reformatted the parking lot. So now you have actual dedicated trailer parking and other parking so that we can get everybody in. And we put up little ropes because people were then backing their little Slim Jim trailers or whatever into the marsh.
Right.
Which is, our marsh is degrading already. We don't need to hasten it anymore. So those sorts of things we did to try and help people be able to get out there and everybody have their space. We're really interested in finding more places that we can offer access. It's just a matter of finding those areas that aren't going to interfere with the waterfowl primarily, as well as cause more erosion and issues as well.
So I know a lot of folks, they ask about the wildlife drive. They always ask about that. We cannot fish on the wildlife drive, correct? So reiterate that to the public, because we know we've had a couple people that have pulled out there, set their stuff up, and we've had to go out and say something too.
And this is something that we've thought and talked about a lot, is can we offer any fishing there? The wildlife drive.
I don't think so.
Exactly.
I
Wildlife
don't think
drive,
so, and I'm just being realistic.
Wildlife drive is the only area that we have that the public can drive around, take pictures, watch wildlife, get their binoculars out, take their kids out on a bike and drive around. It is the only area that we have for that. So that's why we have kept it that way, because we thought about if we allowed fishing as well, you can imagine if you start to think about it.
Personally, I think that the photographers have had that for years and years and years and years. And honestly, you look at the water level that's around that, there's not really much water there.
No, there's not.
And as far as between me and you, you're not really hurting anything by not letting somebody fish here, because between us all sitting here, the biomass of snakes isn't necessarily situated in that area to begin with, you know?
Right.
So I think for me, it's important to respect the bird watchers that have been coming here for years and years and that call that little area home, you know?
Yeah.
So I agree. I don't think that should be opened up for fishing, but I definitely am excited to hear that you guys are looking for more opportunities to give us to go after snakeheads. That being said, what is Blackwater National Wildlife Refuge stance on snakeheads?
Snakeheads are an invasive exotic species. We would rather them not be here, but they are here.
That's right.
So we're not going to, in our opinion, or be able to eradicate them. So we're not trying that, but we want to encourage as much harvest and
that's
excellent response.
Getting them gone
Excellent response.
as much as possible.
That's the same response we have towards people too. There's no way we could ever get rid of snakeheads in this area at this point. Just harvest as much as you can to try to control the population.
I mean, we ain't judging you if you don't want to harvest them either. You know what I mean? It's angler's choice. That's the bottom line. Another thing that we want to talk about.
But why wouldn't you want to harvest them? They're so
Right,
tasty.
right,
I mean, they are the best.
I
They
agree.
are the best. So that's like if you're,
Laws. Let's talk a little bit
Sure.
about, if you guys have a different level of, let's say, laws than the state has. What a lot of these guys don't understand, and we know we're having a problem with a lot of transportation going on down here. We all know it.
Yes.
And I think the biggest thing that we need to do is we need to try to curb a lot of this transplanting that's going on, simply because what we've seen at Blackwater is one scenario. We've seen certainly other scenarios around the bay, and some of the scenarios that we've been paying attention to are also beginning to change too. So I think that no place will be affected if I take to have the thought that, I'm going to take snakeheads and put them in my pond, everything's going to be okay. I think that notion is it's really far-fetched, So I think that the public needs to know that from you, and from you guys, that it's not okay to come on our refuge and take the fish live and put them somewhere else.
That's correct. It's not okay to come onto the refuge and take anything, actually. Even if it's one of the sunflowers,
piece of driftwood,
aster, a shed that you found, it's actually one of the rules. You have to leave everything on the refuge there.
So we know that Blackwater is working towards easier access to help us combat this snakehead epidemic, and we're really, really excited that we're able to have some input in that and help you guys out. And I know that for me and Eddie and Gary, that we're going to continue to do everything that we're doing on our front to promote the harvest,
100%.
to educate, to work with you
always
guys.
the biggest
Yeah,
thing.
man. I mean, if I read a book and a book tells me something and it's factual data, I have to believe that. That's just me. How can we help the refuge?
Right.
How can the guy that comes here today, that visits, what can he do to add to the refuge and not take from the refuge?
Well, he or she can do a number of things. Follow the rules, of course, just makes it easier for everybody and makes sure that everybody then has an enjoyable time, for one thing. You can promote the refuge. I mean, you can tag us. We're on Facebook. You can promote us. As far as letting folks know what the purpose of a refuge is, we're different than a national park.
Yes.
We are here for wildlife, and
Yes.
that's good, and we are open for hunting and fishing, which, parks aren't, as far as hunting goes. In fact, we've got 312 refuges that are open for fishing across the country, and 377 open to hunting.
That's awesome.
So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
You can also, of course, if you go on Wildlife Drive, there's a small fee. And if you hunt and you buy a permit,
$2.
there's
$2.
a small fee. Those fees that go from Wildlife Drive and for hunting and basically that's it, hunting and Wildlife Drive, those go directly to what we call our rec fee funds. And those funds can only be used for things such as the roads, parking lots, gates, anything, restrooms, anything specific for visitors. That's it. It cannot go towards anything else. So that helps us support it. So that hunt fee that you pay whenever you buy for turkey or for deer, the $6 transaction fee goes to recreation.gov. That's the company that does it for the government. We have no choice in that. Sorry. It just is what it is. We tried to, trust me, I tried. But then the rest of the fee goes straight towards actual amenities on the refuge. And then the last thing is we do have the Friends of Blackwater, which is a nonprofit group that supports the refuge. And so there's almost
wonderful group.
Almost 1,000 members, not quite. So maybe your members
They're
can
a
help
great
us
group.
get there.
That's what I wanted you to bring up. Was that?
Yeah. And that small membership fee and donations to them, they are there for us anytime we need help. Whenever we need more gravel for our hunt parking lots, that's a huge thing. They're able to do that. It might be shocking for you to know that the federal government has a lot of bureaucracy and red tape.
No, come on.
Sometimes we need to get things done, and we need to get things done quick.
Right.
And it's because of the Friends that we can do that.
They've done a lot of work over the years.
And yes, absolutely. So they are a huge, huge supporter of everything that we do. And I don't think they do a good enough job of getting out there and letting hunters and anglers know what they do.
Yeah,
for them.
They're very important to everything that's happened here in this area for many years. You know, I've always donated money to them every year when I get my permit. I'm down here. I've had a great day. I'm really, really excited to come to Blackwater. I think I want to donate $10 to Blackwater for the beautiful day. I can ride over to the visitors or the Wildlife Drive, slide 10 in the box there. Or I can come over to the gift shop and drop off $10 or something like that.
Yes.
Look, folks, these little donations that you're making down here will go a long way, believe me, in this whole entire movement that we have going in Dorchester County. So if you got extra $10 or something like that, send it their way, will you? I think we're...
There's one question I know that we get all the time that I did want to cover. The 335 soft launch.
Yes.
Why is that chained over when during the waterfowl season?
You mean Kiwanis?
I mean, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
Key Wallace.
Yeah,
Okay.
Key Wallace. I'm sorry.
Okay, good.
Why is that chained over during the waterfowl season?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. That is actually closed because of waterfowl overwintering there. So from October through the end of March, that area is actually closed. So in many areas around the refuge, if the waters are navigable, you can go on them and do whatever you want to do. You just can't step off onto refuge property or private property for that matter.
That's
I don't think they'll like that. Yeah, I don't
Wear
think
a
people like
bulletproof
that.
vest wherever you go.
just warning you. But that area there, we actually own the bottom of the lake.
Okay.
And so that particular, the heart, what people call Blackwater Lake or Lake Blackwater, was actually part of the very first acreage of the refuge back when this Delmarva Fur Farm, back in 1933 when we were established. So we own the bottom, and that is particularly for overwintering waterfowl. Now, if you come a lot and you're driving by, you'll see, and you go down Wildlife Drive, you'll see all the waterfowl that use it. 20,000+ waterfowl all winter long. That particular area where people like to fish and where we open up the chain, sometimes you don't see anything there, but lots of times you'll see all the geese, and they'll hang out back by our maintenance shop in the marsh there. So that's why. And as soon as that March 31st comes around, we open it up and we can use that.
Ready to roll again.
Yeah, that's our property. That's a launch that used to only be used by us. And in the past couple years, we said, let's open it. Let's open it and let people use it, and as long as it doesn't cause conflicts for everybody. And so we've been happy with how that's been working. Every now and then somebody will block it, so we put some new signs up. So we just hope that people continue to be polite and not block that ramp, because we, the refuge, and our Nutria folks, the wildlife services people, they've got to actually back their boats down there and use that lots of times to hit places. But as long as everybody keeps it open, we can use it.
Fair enough.
Between April and
Right.
the end of September. Yes.
Well, I think we're getting pretty out there on time.
Yeah,
So
we're getting
I
close.
want to first off say Marsha was our first female guest that we've had
Absolutely.
on our
Woohoo, about
podcast.
time. Yeah, at least
And-
it didn't go much longer. I appreciate that.
And we would really appreciate if there's any other ladies out there that would like to get involved in the podcast as far as
Absolutely.
biologists, river keepers, anything like that. We'd love to have you on the show. I want to make sure that we touch base real quick, Eddie, before we go. But Marsha, again, we want to thank you for everything that you're doing
Absolutely.
over there. We love Blackwater National Wildlife Refuge. We do our best to promote you, get you out there, and we
know
will
you do.
continue to
You
do
do.
that. We just love the place. So, Eddie, let's talk a little bit about the tournament schedule real quick. Okay, so we've got some stuff ironed down. Our first tournament, we know that who's that guy doing our first tournament?
So Bass Wreck Outdoors,
Kevin,
they will be co-hosting our first tournament with us here in Dorchester
right
County.
here on the grounds.
And that will be on May 16th. So Bass Wreck Outdoors, that we finally got all of our co-hosts nailed down now.
Yes.
We still got a couple dates to iron out for later in the year.
Right.
But all of our co-hosts are nailed down now. We've got Bass Wreck for May 16th. June 20th, we have Westside Snakes. We have July 18th, we have Autumn Sky. August, we have the CCA, Coastal Conservation Association. September, we have
Anglers.
Anglers.
Right there. Like my hat. Like my hat. Got a free
And
hat
then-
for talking.
And then October, we there'll be no co-host. That'll be the championship down here back in Dorchester County.
So anybody that's looking to sponsor in the corporate side or anything like that, you want to start reaching out to us now, get your name on the board so we can get you implanted in the tournament schedule. Don't forget, April 4th.
April
The
4th.
first annual Maryland Snakehead Festival out here at Sailwinds Park, man. This thing's going to be huge. We still got a few tables left. You custom guys out there building baits, you need a table in this place. There's going to be thousands of people walking around
That's right.
in this joint. We've had over 100,000 hits just on Facebook as far as where they're coming, not going, or simply viewed the festival page. Keep in mind, too, we have the blackwatersedge.com website set up. You can go there now, and you can view the tournaments. You can view all kinds of good stuff. on
All of the past tournaments are on there. I haven't got this year's tournaments on there yet. That'll be on there as soon as possible.
and we're going to start flooding that with all kinds of content. So whether it's fishing, Sika deer, whatever, we're going to start loading that thing up.
Hog hunting like Gary.
Yeah, hog. That was a hell of a hog, wasn't it? Oh, my God.
That's something I haven't done yet.
Gary. Let's get her down there.
I think that about wraps it up. No one more for you, Kaz?
Actually, no, man.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I think.
Come see us at Eagle Fest on March.
Oh, that's
Oh,
right,
yeah, we
yeah.
forgot about
Yeah, that's right,
Eagle
come
Fest,
down.
March 15th, Blackwater
March
National
14th.
Wildlife.
March 14th.
March 14th, March 14th. March 14th, Blackwater National Wildlife Refuge, the Eagle Fest. If you have never been to this thing, you do not know what you're missing. There are literally thousands of people come out to this thing, and it is a great time. All kinds of seminars, workshops, all kinds of stuff to do. Marsha, tell us a little bit about that before we get out of here.
Sure, it's a great event to come bring the family, kids. There'll be crafts, adults can enjoy. We have live eagles, live birds of prey demonstrations that starts at 9 o'clock, goes to 4 o'clock. You can also sign up for Eagle Prowls, which first come, first serve. You get on buses, and our biologist will take you into closed parts of the refuge to talk and see
Oh, fantastic.
eagles. Parts of the refuge you wouldn't see otherwise.
Will you have one of those trailers there for throwing axes at a snakehead?
No, but we will have the BB gun range
Yay!
and our hover ball. If you bring a snakehead, we could probably stick it up there and you could shoot a BB at it.
we're going to have a thing at the Snakehead Festival where you stand in a big cage with axes and you throw them at a snakehead on the
It's
wall.
not finalized yet.
Not finalized, but we're working on that. We'd like to
Yeah,
have that. You know?
Nothing could go wrong with that.
Well, it's just you, the axe inside the cage. So if it's going to
That's
go wrong, it's just you, hopefully.
All right, so I think that about it covers it this week. Marsha,
Yeah.
thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
on.
This
Thank
is a
you
great-
very much.
Great episode. Great having you on.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Enjoyed it.
So, Gary, like I said, Gary's out sick this week.
Hi,
Sorry
Gary.
he missed us.
Sorry, Gary.
But for Marsha, Gary, Kaz, myself, thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you next time.